What do I need to hear? Talk. You can't hear anything? Why? Oh, jeez. I don't know what's going on right now. Well, hello, everyone. Dan Kirbyville here. Welcome to PowerHouse Fin Show. If you've been keeping up, you'll know that Zach has moved on to another career, and he'll be a guest returning from time to time. But for now, it's just me and Ilaria holding it down.
Oh, hi.
Hello, Ilaria. Thanks for being here today.
Of course.
Yeah. So, we just got back from Branson yesterday. So we were at the Fence Business Conference hosted by the Thornton Fence Consulting Group, and that was a great event. If you missed it, I would highly suggest you be there next year. There were some people that came for the first time, and I personally heard some positive feedback from them. Just sitting around talking in the evenings and things like that, and I think it would really be worth your while. So this is part two of a series where we're. Oh, I will say we will do a reaction kind of video to the event. But I wanna do that with Kenny. Kenny went with me to the event, and so I'd like to have him on there. It was his first time ever going to anything like that, so I think it'd be some pretty good feedback to have. So whenever we have time to do that with Kenny, then we'll publish that, maybe here in the next week or 2. I was going we were gonna do it while we were still in Branson and just kinda ran out of time with we went out with some people and all that kinda stuff. And I thought that when we were on the ride back, it might be a little bit dangerous for us to try to record a show in the car, and so decided not to do that just yet. Um, so thank you to all of our sponsors, Memphis Fence Company, MFC Manufacturing, Simpalo, and the Thornton Fence Consulting Group. Uh, so for those of you that don't know, I own Memphis Fence Company, MFC Manufacturing, and Simpalo. So there's that. There is a link in the description for the Garden State AFA chapter's Jackpot Trade Show, I think, Ilaria?
Yes,
Okay.
they're all the links.
Okay, you got all the links. So, there's a link to their website that's talking about that trade show that's coming up in January. Not sure if I'm gonna be there or not. I went to the Northeast show last year, and it really surprised me. It was a lot bigger and a lot more than what I thought it would be, and so if you're in that area, if you're looking for something to do, I would suggest going over there and checking it out. It's in Atlantic City, which I've also never been there. There's also a link to the Thornton Fence Consulting Group of events in our description, and that AFA's Tech Summit is linked in there because we're talking about software. They did this maybe like a year ago, and there's 9 different software companies that were pretty involved in the fence industry, and we did a tech summit where everybody got something like 15 or 20 minutes to kinda showcase what their software did. I personally use that link a lot whenever I'm talking to people about Simpalo, and, I sent it to someone today, and I was like, "Hey, go check out some other options." So, I I don't know. I like people to have a solution that seems to be a good fit for 'em. Sometimes it's simple and sometimes it's not, and so, we'll, try to point them in another direction. So we are live. There is a phone number down here on the bottom, 901-878-4987 if you'd like to call in. We can chat for a little bit. Um, as you know, I'm here alone, like we already said. Me and Ilaria are
Oh,
holding
yeah.
it down. So, I have done a couple of shows solo in the past, and it's a lot different doing one by yourself than it is doing one with somebody sitting here that you can talk to, so
But people, whoever is watching, tell them he did great. So
yeah,
it's okay.
yeah, that would be cool if anybody wants to, at least lie about it, you know? So, it's a little different than, having a person sitting here talking to you, so just bear with me a little bit. I'm trying to get used to it, and, it'll be fine. So, as always, thank you, listeners. I ran into some people here recently, a few of them in Branson, and then, 1 or 2 that I've done some Palo demos for, and all of them were like, "Oh, hey, I listened to your show," and that's really cool. Like, it might seem silly to tell somebody that, and I'm not, like, asking you to tell me, but I mean, just in general, it might seem silly to tell people that sometimes, but it is pretty cool to hear, and it's the reason that we do this thing. We don't I don't just sit here and talk with all these cameras and lights and everything just for my health, so it is you, and it's cool whenever you get some kind of feedback, so hey, Seth, thanks for stopping by. Good to see you, man. Um, so anyways, ran into a few people that said they listened to the show and stuff, so that's cool. If you have any suggestions about anything you'd like to hear or any guest you'd like to have on the show, I I need to spend some time trying to get some guests. Ilario, we need to work on that
Yes, for season 3.
because it's been a little while since we had a guest,
Mhm.
and we started off this year strong. It was like 3 months of guests every week, and then we had guests throughout. I guess like the first half of the year, and
Yeah, I think the last part of the year is when we've been struggling, but we've also been busy, so it kinda makes sense. But we'll do better for season 3.
we've been busy, and it is work. It's work to put together these agendas, but, I mean, I can do that in not too much time, but trying to get guests and trying to coordinate and stuff like that, I mean, it is, it takes some time, and we just honestly haven't really had time to do it, so sorry about that, but if you have any suggestions or anything, just let us know. So we will be at FinTech in 2025 in Salt Lake City for sure. If you're thinking about going, it should be a pretty amazing event. There's going to be a ton of education stuff there. I don't have any kind of numbers or statistics or anything like that available to you, but I can tell you in Nashville last year, I think there was like somewhere between 7 and 8,000 people that were there for FinTech. And just being in an environment with that many people that are in the fence industry is pretty cool in itself. Then you get all the education, you get to see all the latest, greatest moves, da 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 da. So pretty cool thing, definitely worth it. I was sitting at a table with a guy the other night, and this he was talking about. He said some comment like, I've learned more after, or not, may not learn more, but I've learned as much after 5 o'clock as I do during the day in all these sessions, and I was like, "Well, yeah, you get to sit here and have one-on-one conversations." And, this particular guy, he was fairly new into the fence industry, bought a fence company, I think, 3 years ago and was not from the fence industry before that. And so, I mean, there was obviously speakers and, other people there that had been in the industry longer. And, I mean, just being able to talk to them and, share stories and ask questions and all that kinda stuff. And, so he was making some comments about that, and I was like, "Yeah, man, that's what we call the intangibles, right? It's something you can't really explain. It's really hard to tell someone what it's like to sit in that group, but once you've been there and once you've experienced it, it is pretty cool to see. So that's cool at all of these events. Check it out. Like I said, the Jackpot Show, in January. I know FinTech is, I think, at the end of February, right, Ilaria?
Yeah, like 26, 28 is the exhibition.
Yeah. Yeah, so late February this year, Salt Lake City. Get to some events, get out there and, I mean, listen to somebody talking about something. Even I I've told this story before, but I used to be the person that, I grew up in the fence business. I was born into this thing. I've done it my entire life. I'm the 3rd generation owner of this fence company here. And I used to just be like, "Nah, I know it all. These people, they ain't gonna teach me nothing. I don't need to listen to podcasts. I don't need to go to classes, and it's just a waste of time and all this stuff." And that was just kind of like the mentality that I'd grown up around. And then sometime I messed around and listened to a couple of podcasts, and I was like, it took me a little bit because I would listen and I would just be like, none of this applies to me. Like, I already know everything that they're talking about. And, through a few episodes, I kind of still had that type of mentality of, I haven't really learned anything yet. When's it coming? Well, then I got to the point where I realized, wait a minute, it's not about the whole episode. If I sit here and listen for an hour, I'm not supposed to learn something for the whole hour. If I go to the fence business conference and I sit there and listen to people speak for 2 days, I'm not supposed to try to do everything that they say in 2 days. There's no way, right? But if you can take away 1, 2, 3 little things, I think, Tony calls them nuggets. You get a few little nuggets from listening to people talk, and that's what it's about, right? If you go in there open-minded and realize that I, for one, don't think that I know everything, and I feel like if I ever get to the point where I think I do, then I've messed up, alright? And so, I always try to be open-minded and just listen, and you never know what you might hear. So, just, throwing that out there. But anyways, we do this, Simpalo story of the week sometimes, and, so we've talked about it a couple times. Developers are working on adding some new features. They sent me a few messages today reporting in on some progress and stuff. Should have a few cool things ready to roll out between now and FinTech. You know, gotta have it developed and then tested and everything else, so it takes a little bit of time, but they're working on it and some things are getting done. I did have a pretty interesting experience the other day, Ilaria.
Yeah.
We were driving back from Branson, and I use Calendly to book these things.
Yes.
And, so I went on Calendly, I don't know, a week or 2 ago, and I blocked out this entire week
Mhm.
because I knew I was gonna be gone Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, back Thursday. It's gonna be complete chaos. Thursday, Friday, just kinda trying to get caught up on everything or, kinda hectic or whatever. Well, apparently, whenever I blocked those days, I don't know if I didn't block the right meeting type, but somehow I did something wrong. And so people were able to schedule meetings with me. And one of them was yesterday at, like, noon. Well, as it turns out, we're just riding along in the car, and I get a notification from Outlook that a meeting's starting in 15 minutes. And I was like, what am I gonna do now?" So I just turned on my mobile hotspot, pulled out my laptop, and I did a Simpalo demo while I was riding down the road. Kenny was driving, I was not driving, so I didn't try to do it while driving, but it was pretty cool to do a demo going down the road. I've never done that before. Maybe not the most professional thing to do, I'll admit that, but I think it was more professional to do that than it would have been to be like, "Oh, hey, I messed up, I need to reschedule." Right? It was a couple of people there, they had set time aside and all, and so I wanted to be able to deliver. So,
Yeah, I think that's better than not showing up.
well, I wouldn't just not show up,
Yeah,
but
or
I could have
people ask
called
you,
them
yeah.
and canceled or rescheduled, and I don't like doing that. I try to be the person that if you schedule something with me, I'm gonna be there one way or another. I did some Palo demos for people when I was home with pneumonia and, like, hacking up a lung, and that was, you know, I like I said, I just think if you're gonna commit to something, be there. So, for tool time, no, I don't have any. Are you gonna play some music?
Yeah, I was going to, but it's okay.
I mean, there's nobody to, like, segue in, right? There's not like an
Yeah.
intro. And now, tool time with Dan.
The man Tuberville.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I guess that was a hammer and nails. So this is a little bit different than normal, but it kinda ties into the whole software theme and stuff like that. So I wanna talk about Apple devices, and I am a fan of Apple devices. I know there's, people that are not into whatever. Alaria's sitting over here doodling on her iPad. This is kinda distracting, by the way. I just wanna know what you're drawing. Um, so anyways, I like Apple. I have, phone, tablet, computer, watch, all of this stuff. And what's always been amazing to me about Apple is just the fact that all the devices communicate together so well. And I know there's other solutions out there. Are you kinda giving it like a so-so thing?
Yeah.
Uh, that's that's user error.
Yeah, iCloud doesn't always think.
There's this there's this old saying, and I don't know if people still use it or not in the development world, but they used to say, like, the IT folks and stuff would say, like, "pepcat," right? "Oh, that's the problem. It's a pepcat," or something like that. And so it's an acronym for problem exists between keyboard and chair. Do you do you know what's between the keyboard and the chair?
No.
You. So, um, yeah, I mean, everything has its problems, but overall, I feel like the Apple stuff works pretty well. I've never really tried Android. I've never gone down that path. I did have like a Palm phone one time back in the early days because I was trying to be very, I don't know, anti-establishment or something like that, and refused to get an Apple. And so I I refused to get an iPhone, so I tried everything else that was an iPhone alternative, and then I kinda figured out that I finally just gave in. So, Shane Catton, what's happening, man? Yes, sir, I agree. It was great to hang out with you this week as well, and, I really enjoyed listening to you speak and all that, so thanks for stopping by. Um, so the Apple stuff, like I said, I have phone, tablet, computer, laptop, all of that kinda stuff, and so I like that everything communicates, everything's all synced together, right? And so I can take phone calls on my watch, and I do that, like, I'll leave my phone laying somewhere and walk off to go get some water or whatever, or go talk to someone else, here in the office, and if I get a phone call and I'm like, "Oh, crap, my phone's not here," well, I can answer on my watch, and so that's pretty cool, right? And you get text messages and notifications and all those things coming on these smartwatches. I like that. It's really the biggest benefit to me, and it's crazy that like that's what it does for me. But now I don't have to pull my phone out of my pocket, right? Or if I leave my phone and I get a notification, well, then I can just check out my watch. But anyways, so one of my favorite things is the computer, right? And it's a lot different. And there's a few things that don't. Well, I use one thing that doesn't work on Apple, and that's QuickBooks that we talked about last week. It QuickBooks Enterprise is not an option on Mac operating system, so I run Parallels and have like basically a virtual PC inside of my Mac, and that's where QuickBooks lives. But past that, everything else that I use all runs on Mac. And so one of my favorite things is the text messages and the iMessages on the computer, right? So if today I sent out a handful of PDF files to people and I texted to them, and all I did was just click on it and drag it over and drop it, right? And then I need to text someone a website that I have pulled up on my computer, no problem. Just send it right out of the web browser. And screenshots are another thing that I use a lot of. And so Claiborne also tries to use screenshots, and it's some kind of crazy process that he has to go to get a screenshot from his computer out to where he can text it to someone. So really, I don't exactly know his process, but I know he goes through like several steps to make that happen. As where with the Mac, like I can just take a screenshot, hit the little share button, boom, it's done. All that kind of stuff is pretty handy. Same thing with photos, right? If I have 12 or 14,000 pictures or whatever in a photo album, if I need to send those to people, I just click on them and send them, and they're done. So they do have cloud storage. I don't really use that, but I do. I enjoy the integration. I enjoy the fact that everything is backed up, although it doesn't work for Ilaria for whatever reason.
Sometimes.
Sometimes their tech support. The few times that I've been in contact with Apple's tech support, it's actually been really good. Um, I've talked to people that, like, they live in Texas or something, and, I mean, so they'll talk to me, they can remote into my stuff, and then they'll, like, text me follow-ups and things like that, which is really crazy. I use their, like, device manager, mobile device manager for some of our company devices, which that allows me to, like, force settings and force updates on them, control what apps they can install, things like that. So mobile device manager, it's definitely not anything that's exclusive to Apple that exists, but I mean, Apple is something that, I can figure out how to use without having to go to our IT folks and all that stuff to get them to do it. I will say adding a device to your mobile device manager account and getting it linked to your company and all that stuff is kind of a pain in the butt. But once you get through it a few times and call tech support 2 or 3 times like I had to do, then you kinda get there, so, um, yeah, so I just did a whole commercial for Apple. I know, sorry, but, that's kinda what we're doing here, right? It's just a series of commercials kind of for the software and the tools and the things like that that we use, but, uh, anyways, so now, Ilaria, would you like to, do our Italian word of the week?
Of course.
So, I thought that I think you hit the wrong button.
Yeah, I did.
Okay. Again. Ah, the Italian word of the week.
Okay.
So, I think the word of the week should be apple.
Like the brand or like The
Like the
fruit.
fruit.
Mela.
Wow, that's mela.
Yes, good job.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, do you think everyone that's listening to this podcast, like, while they're driving to work or driving home or whatever, do you think they do it in their car?
Oh my god, I hope so. I'm actually gonna start asking them to, like, record it and
I
send it to me.
That would be awesome.
I know, right?
We could make some fun reels out
Yeah.
of it. But in my mind, everyone that downloads and they're just driving along, I think they all are just trying to say the Italian word of the week.
Why not?
Yeah. Alright, so now that we've spent 20 minutes getting there, let's talk about actually the topic of the show. Um, so again, if you I think, a couple weeks ago, we had our first, part of the software that we use series. I like that name, Software We Use series. So we had the first part a few weeks ago. We went over Monday.com, which we kinda use as, like, our CRM, project manager. We have equipment list, HR stuff. It's just there's a lot of things that we do in there, right? So we talked about that. And we also talked about QuickBooks and some of the accounting stuff that we use it for. Um, again, AFA did a tech summit, talked about that already. So now I wanna start off with something that I also see people asking about and, a lot of people kinda talk about in the industry, and that's like shop drawings or submittals or whatever you wanna call those. So I use AutoCAD to do that. I use the, like, AutoCAD LT or the Lite version. I think it's like 450 or $500 per user per year, and Autodesk, which owns AutoCAD, they are pretty strict about the whole licenses and users and stuff like that. And so you can't just, like, share just to forewarn you. I They're not gonna, like, I don't know, arrest you or anything, I think, if you try to, but, they they'll, like if you log in on another device, they're gonna, like, kick the other one out, and, like, maybe you can, be logged in on 2 devices at a time, but can't be using both of them. I don't know. They have some weird rules about, you know or they do a good job of protecting their license stuff, instead of there's some stuff out there you can kinda cheat a little bit, uh, which I am not an advocate for because I kind of just think that's stealing, but anyways, AutoCAD, they're very particular about that stuff, but, there's other options out there, right? Stuff that's kind of made for the fence industry that produces shop drawings and things like that. Uh, there's a couple different options out there that you could explore. So I use AutoCAD because I can draw anything I wanna draw. So if we do some sort of custom gates or custom built fence, ornamental wood, chain link, whatever it is, there's never a time where it's like, "Oh, no, my software can't draw that." Right? The only possibility would be, "Oh, no, I can't draw that." We did some crash gates. They're crash resistant gates, we'll say, because they have not been tested and they're not certified or rated or anything else. Uh, so we did some beefy boy gates, whatever you wanna call them, and these people, they're like, "Hey, somebody's driving through our gates all the time, we need something better," and so, like, I just opened AutoCAD and I just sat there and I drew it and, found parts and pieces that I wanted to use and got dimensions off of them. A lot of times, on I know McMaster-Carr's website, I use, like, CAD Details, I think it's called, where you can download, CAD files to certain products. I think Lockinox is one of them, maybe DTEX, and, but McMaster-Carr, you can download I don't know about everything that they sell, but a ton of stuff that they sell, and you can get a CAD file for it. So, a lot of what you wind up doing after you have a catalog, after you figure out where you can get drawings and stuff, a lot of it's just like copy, paste, scale, move, right? Because you don't have to redraw the chain link every time. You don't have to redraw your fittings and your concrete and all that stuff every time you do something. I mean, I've used drawings that I made for 6-foot tall fence and just changed the text on the dimension to be 10-foot tall fence and just change what the notes say the posts are and stuff like that. So, I mean, once you have it drawn, it's kind of, I won't say you're done, right? You can't just build a catalog and then be done. You always have something that's different. Oh, they want a different type of gate. They want, you know, I don't know, windscreen or slats or whatever. There's always something different to draw, but for the most part, you can do a lot of copy, paste, move, things like that. Um, I learned AutoCAD when I went to engineering school because that's what they told us that we had to do. They were I I learned a lot. Maybe I developed I don't know, in engineering school, right? Obviously, like, you learn engineering things, but I learned a lot of things that kinda went along with that. And so one of oh, AutoCAD is an example. They would give us tests, and the test would be to do this drawing. And we would do the drawing, and we would have to email them the, like, CAD file. And they would go through and they would look at every step that we took along the way to get to the end result. And if we didn't take the steps that they wanted us to, whether because that was, the ones that they had just taught us to do or the way that was more efficient or whatever the reasoning was, if we didn't take the steps that they thought we should take, then they would knock points off for all the steps we did wrong. So it wasn't just about like the drawing that we had at the end of it. It was about the process of getting to that drawing as well. And so things like that, they kind of stick with me, right? Not about the drawing and not about that specifically, but just kind of the overall concept of it is, when I'm training someone, it's not just the end result that you got to. So the other day, Claiborne and I were having a conversation, and he says, "Yeah, I think this will take, I don't know, 3 days on this job." And I said, "Why?" And he gave me a reason. I said, "Well, the number of days you had were correct, but your logic was not correct." And so I explained to him kind of the process and where his thought process was off. So yeah, he got to the right result, but I wanted him to get there the right way, if that makes sense, because there's gonna be another job where he's gonna apply that same logic, and that number of days that he got was gonna be wrong. So again, a lot of things from engineering school have kinda stuck with me over time, which I reflect back on now, and I think it's kinda cool. Um, but anyways, back to AutoCAD. Like I said, you get a catalog, you find out where you can get things, all that stuff, and you can buy blocks. I've never done it. I can't tell you anything about it, but I do know that you can somehow buy, like, blocks or, like, collections of drawings, and then you have access to all that stuff too, so it takes a little while to learn. Yep, and you can find a ton of information about it on YouTube. You can take online classes that'll teach you how to use AutoCAD, or you can just, play around in there and figure it out. It's not super complicated, but it takes a little while to learn, and I think a really important part, if you do go down this journey, a really important part is to learn how to use your keyboard more. So you would think that when you're drawing, you're going to be clicking around a bunch with your mouse, but actually, you need to learn how to do things on your keyboard. I promise you, once you get that and kind of start using the keyboard and entering in the dimensions and entering the commands and stuff like that on the keyboard, it's going to get a little bit easier for you. You do still have to use the mouse, don't get me wrong, but using the keyboard a lot is important. So, like I said, there's online classes out there that exist too. So before I used AutoCAD, I used Corel Draw, right, which is really like a graphic design kind of software, I think. I'm not exactly sure what it's intended to be, honestly, because I just used it. It was what I was given. It was what I was told to use, and that's what I did. And the drawings were okay. Looking back now, they look a little bit, I don't know, maybe cartoonish, right, in comparison to the drawings that come out of AutoCAD. Like, I mean, you can draw plan sets and things like that in AutoCAD, right? So, I mean, they're what you're used to seeing when you open a set of plans or anything like that. As where Corel is, like I said, maybe a little bit cartoonish or, something like that. But it did work. There was actually some features in Corel that I wish AutoCAD had, but the stuff that AutoCAD does kind of outweighs what it doesn't do. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. It felt a little weird. I don't know. You ever have those things that you say that just kinda, like, feel weird? They come out and you're like, "What was that?"
Yeah, do you know who you're talking to? It's not even my first language.
Mm, right. It's like you're 6. right?
No, more like 12.
12?
Yeah,
Yeah. How do you say 12 and you know what? I can't believe we've never learned to count in Italian, Valeria.
you're right.
What we've never like, we didn't even start with, like, the basics of the language.
I know.
We don't know our alphabet, we don't know how to count. Man.
Next episode, I'll teach you how to count.
Oh, we're gonna start with 1.
Yeah.
And so, season 3, episode 1.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're gonna start announcing the episode numbers in Italian.
Yes. So I can just send it to everyone in Italy. And they'll think it's in Italian. They get tricked, but we'll get views.
There we go. And you can start, putting the Italian word in the description, and maybe you'll trick the algorithms,
Ooh, I can try.
and they'll start showing it in Italy. Mhm. Alright, so that's enough about AutoCAD. You have any questions about AutoCAD?
No.
No? Okay. Anyone else have any questions about AutoCAD? No? Alright, so moving on. The, next thing I wanna kinda dive into is something that everyone's gonna be super familiar with, but I'm gonna do it anyways. Microsoft stuff, alright? So, like, the whole Microsoft I don't know, they call it 365 or whatever they call it. So we have that, and we started with that because we were, like, buying individual subscriptions of stuff here and there, and then, it was kind of, like, at the transition from buying software to licensing software, and so we had, like, some outdated stuff, we had some new stuff, and then finally we got our act together, and we got everybody on the same apps, software, programs, whatever you wanna call them, and, we kinda got into the, like, Microsoft 365 side of stuff, and from there well, first I used Dropbox, for, like, cloud storage, but once we swapped over and started running the Microsoft stuff, then I moved all of that into OneDrive. Um, yeah, so then the next progression in that was we actually swapped our phone system. So we upgraded our internet so that we can be crystal clear, beam into you.
We made it.
We did. For anyone who's been watching this show for a while, there used to be some times where we were a little bit buggy, and that was because we were like exceeding the capability of the internet provider that we had. We had the highest level of internet they would offer, and we exceeded it. And so we swapped and got dedicated fiber ran to us just so that we can stream loud and clear and all that stuff. But anyway, whenever we did that, because we had like a package deal before, the internet, the phones, all that kind of stuff was one bundle. And so we swapped over and we got Microsoft phones, which I didn't even know existed until I was sitting in someone's office and their phone rang or they called somebody or something along those lines, and, we were kinda talking about that a little bit, but yeah, Teams has a whole phone thing, and so it runs through the if you're familiar with Microsoft and you've ever used Teams, then, Teams has a lot of chat stuff. I know the most common use of Teams for me before we had it was, like, meetings, right? I would join meetings on there. But then we got it, and I figured out, well, there's chat stuff, and so we do that. We have how many different chats do we have here in our office, Ilaria? Like 40? Like,
Basically.
it's
And I'm
crazy.
not even part of all of them, so I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. So we have, like, chats for this and that and everything else, and, I have chats with outside people who are not a part of our organization. You can do that in there. But anyway, so through the same app on your phone, on your computer, on whatever is where your phone what? Through the same app that's either on your phone or computer, your Microsoft Teams phone will function. So that's cool. I don't even have a phone on my desk. We have, a phone system here in our office, obviously, but I don't have one on my desk. I just use my computer or use my cell phone. But anyways, so when we did that, we swapped over to Microsoft phones. So now we have a bunch of Microsoft stuff. Um, but kind of Microsoft, right? But kind of not like I mentioned Dropbox a minute ago. There's several of these out there, but I'm a huge advocate for cloud storage. Kind of like what I talked about earlier with Apple, where everything communicated together and all of that stuff. Cloud storage is the same thing. And I told you Apple does have their version of cloud storage. I don't use it. We use OneDrive through our Microsoft stuff. I don't know which one is more secure. I don't know the pros and cons of using it, but I do know that there's a lot of people in our office that don't use Apple computers, and so trying to share files and stuff like that across different things can get a little messy. So with OneDrive, you can share access. You can like share a link and give them access for the day or the week or whatever. But yeah, you can just share a link with people and or give them shared access to the same folder so you can collaborate on stuff. And uh, SharePoint's a thing. I don't really know much about SharePoint, but it also is some sort of collaboration sharing type of thing that I don't know does something like that. But obviously, we use Outlook, Word, Excel, all of that. Well, let me say one more thing about or a couple of things about this cloud storage. I got distracted. Who distracted me? Uh,
I stopped doing
so the cloud storage stuff, right? So if my computer dies, I have every file that's on my computer is in OneDrive. There's nothing that's exclusively stored locally on my computer. And so everything's in OneDrive. So if my computer dies right now, this computer sitting in front of me can crap out right now, and I can go get another one. I install OneDrive, and there you go. There's all your files and folders back again. Um, the agenda that I'm using for the show right now, I made on my computer upstairs. I came down here, and it's already on my laptop. Like, cloud storage is such a is amazing, right? And I really like the fact. My favorite thing of it really is that if this computer dies, I can just go get another one, and everything's there. Anyways, not to try to go too far down that path, but if you have a computer, which I'd imagine most everybody out there does, I would strongly suggest you saving things in some sort of cloud storage. Cybersecurity is a thing, right? So you might want to talk to some your IT professionals about the cybersecurity side of stuff and make sure that you're covering your bases. You don't want somebody to get into your cloud storage file folder and have access to all of your files and folders and be able to steal them and hold them ransom and da 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 da. So just be aware of that. But also, my second favorite thing about it is whenever I leave the office and I go outside across town to lunch, whatever, then someone calls me and they have a question about something. Well, now I have all of my files and folders right here on my phone too. And so they're shared across all the devices. Everything is accessible from everywhere, and that's amazing to me. That really gets me excited. Like, that's the stuff that I lay awake at night just getting excited about. What about you, Ilaria?
Yeah, no, not that.
No,
No.
that's not the thing?
No.
But I don't know why, but I feel like I really, like, nerd out on, like, the whole, I don't know, it's easy to replace, it's everywhere kind of thing. That's been a recurring theme throughout this episode of the show here. Oh, look at that. JC Gurry Signs and Decals checking in. How's it going? Thanks for stopping by. So, uh, anyways, you have access to everything. You have it all. So, I talked a little bit about engineering school earlier. Well, I'm going to talk about it again right now. So, when we were in engineering school, kind of our learning process, obviously there was a ton of math that we had to do, right? We had to design things and test things and all of that. And so when we were doing it, we would have to learn how to do all the math on paper first. And when I say all the math, I mean you might design something and it takes you 5 or 6 or 7 pages of doing math by hand in order to get to, the results, right? To figure out what you needed to accomplish to handle a certain requirement. Water treatment plant. If you've got your population is this, uh, you know, here's what's available to you kind of stuff, then like here's the size of plant that you need to handle it. Like, I don't know, things like that. I don't really remember. I don't remember that stuff. I just remember this other random stuff. But so we learned a lot. Like I said, we would do it all by hand the first time. And then the second time around, they would say, okay, now you get to do it in Excel. And so then we would build an Excel spreadsheet that did all this stuff. And today, if I build an Excel spreadsheet, I might put, you know, different formulas in different cells that all kind of lead me to one result. So if it's like a fairly complex calculation, I might like make it to where there's 2 or 3 different steps, and that's all in 2 or 3 different cells. Well, uh, it shouldn't be surprising to anyone, but they would not allow us to do that. So would have to have all of those steps in one cell. And so sometimes if you've ever used Excel or anything like that, you got, your formula kinda goes across the top up there, and some of the formulas that we would build in there would be like, I don't know, 8 lines all the way across the screen, and so I learned that you actually can, like, drag at the bottom of the formula bar, drag it down, and it'll expand. I never had to do that until engineering school. But, um, all of that is that. So, I had a professor, like I mean, this is, like, on our 1st day of class or our 2nd day of class or something like that, and this guy says, "If you're doing the same math every day and you don't build an Excel spreadsheet to do it for you, you're an idiot." And I was like, "Wow, that's kinda harsh, man, like, take it easy on us." And so I kinda still remember that, right? We learned how to do a lot of things in Excel in engineering school, but I've also learned that the internet knows a lot of things about Excel, and so now I use Excel quite a bit. Sometimes I might build an Excel spreadsheet just for a job specifically, if I don't have anything available that is going to do whatever I'm trying to do on the job. I made one a few weeks ago because we were trying to figure out what size panels we needed, and, this was a job where all the holes were core drilled. We were building the fence to go in it, and so, your kind of initial thought may be like, "Oh, no, we have to build every panel the same size." Well, what I did was I built an Excel spreadsheet and figured out that I could build, you know, a one size of panel maybe would work in 10 different places, and then the next size would work in 8 different places, and kind of just narrowed down or eliminated the whole process of building each one the same size, right? So we kind of were able to, like, build in some ranges, if that makes sense. And just made an Excel spreadsheet to do it. It probably took half an hour and probably saved, shoot, I don't even know, probably 50 hours or 30 hours of time fabricating every single piece different, because this it's that little bitty short fence in the median in the middle of the road, Ilaria?
Yeah, I showed that to Will, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, so it kinda has like a top and bottom horizontal runner, and then each panel has, I think, like 2 or 3 X's built into it, and it has, like, little decorative, we call them medallion pieces, that are in the center of the X's on both sides, so, I mean, it's not like it's the most complex thing in the world, but it takes a little bit of time, and if you have to cut all of those pieces for each different size panel, right? Because now all of your pieces are different lengths in your X and all this kinda stuff, it takes a lot more time. So anyways, good example of doing that. I've used it for bidding jobs. One of them that comes to mind, it's probably been a couple years ago, honestly, but it was before Simpalo was able to actually do calculations, I think. So I believe that I could upload the plans in there and I could measure, but developers hadn't progressed far enough along to where I could actually do calculations. And so I built an Excel spreadsheet and I manually entered all the different sizes and everything. And I set it to where it would allow me to do a half panel. Because this was an apartment complex. There was a lot of little sections of fence everywhere, but it was like, I don't know, 4 or 5,000 feet of fence for the whole thing. And it was broken up like crazy all over the place. And I knew if it rounded up each one of these sections, I was going to wind up with 150 extra panels or whatever. And so, like I said, built a spreadsheet that would allow me to calculate half panels instead of just rounding up each section. There's a I don't know. How many examples do you think we could come up with, Ilaria?
I think we're good.
Do you think 2's enough?
I think it's great.
You don't want another, like, 30?
No,
Oh, okay. Alright, well, thank Ilaria when you see her. Yeah, I agree, 2's enough. So, there's a ton of ways that you can use Excel, and it doesn't mess up, right? It doesn't accidentally multiply when it needs to divide. It doesn't do all that. As long as you build it right, it's good. Um, obviously, we use no. Ilaria, can I tell you one more thing that happened in engineering school?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. So we had a professor, and we had to write a lot of papers, right? So we would do these big like research papers, and it would be like a semester long project where we were testing different things. And so at the end of it, we had to pretend that we were an engineering firm, and we had gone through all of these testing and different methods and all this stuff in order to give a proposal to a client. And then at the end of the semester, we would all meet in the auditorium or whatever, and we would all have to go on stage and give a presentation and, turn in a report and all. Well, the professor was the client. And so this guy, if you put 27 inches and you put like the quote mark behind it, right? The two
Mhm.
little lines at the
Yep.
top. If you did that on the first page, and then on the 37th page, you put 64 inches, but you put 64 IN, that dude would give you, like, 2 points off every time.
Oh my god.
And so me to say on page 1 and then on page 37 is no way an exaggeration either. I don't know how in the world this guy was able to do it, but I promise you, they could be on complete opposite ends of a 40-page long paper, and he would dock you points every time. And I don't believe that he ever missed a single time ever. So you had to have everything formatted exactly the same, okay? So when we create a proposal that's going out to a general contractor, I want that to be formatted exactly the same. And a really easy way for us to accomplish that is by using Microsoft Word. Right? So I just created a proposal, and that's the same form that's shared with everybody, and, the margins are set and, I don't the indentions or I don't know what they call it when you have, like, the distance that it moves over when you hit tab, the fonts, all of those kinda things are all preset, right?
Mhm.
And so now every time someone gets a proposal from Memphis Fence Company, uh, in, like, the general contractor world, at least, they all look the same. And so the only difference is gonna be, the name of the job, who it's to, the scope of the work, and the signature at the bottom. Past that, they all look the same. And I think that's really awesome.
Yes.
I think that, that's the reason why chain restaurants and other things like that exist, is because you could go to one in Memphis, Tennessee, and you could go to one in, I don't know, Albuquerque, and you know what to expect when you walk in the door, right? And so if someone gets a proposal from me one week and then gets one from, I don't know, Donnie or Claiborne or Ilaria, are you sending proposals yet?
Of course. Yeah,
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 yeah, every day?
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. So no matter who you get a proposal from at Memphis Fence, like, you know what to expect, and hopefully people learn kind of how to read them, right? If that makes sense. So, yeah, I'm a big stickler about keeping things uniform. So people around here have heard these stories and they love it because I tell them the same stories. And like, I think that's the punishment, right? If you mess up and you do it wrong, then I have to tell you the story about why I think it's important.
Every time.
Yeah, I like that. So, yeah, we use Word for that. We type proposals in Word, so we don't use any sort of software that like prepares proposals for us. Um, Zach did some stuff in Monday for the ornamental jobs that were like the B2B world. And so he had that stuff automated some to where it would kind of populate that same formatted proposal. So it would fill in part of it, and I don't know if he ever got to where it would fill in all of it or just part of it, but it still looked the same, and it kinda worked in that one specific, department or region or whatever you wanna say. Um, Isaac, thanks for stopping by, sir. Happy to see you here. So, anyways, yeah, we use Word. Um, what else do we use from Microsoft? We don't really use PowerPoint, right? I'm sure
No.
there's some stuff we could do. Like I said, I talked about SharePoint a little bit earlier. It does some stuff. I have no idea what it does. If you know, let me know. Because I think I accidentally put some stuff in there one time and like couldn't even figure out how to get to it, and then finally got there. And it didn't know what to do with it because it was in there. Yeah, I don't really understand what's going on because it's also some sort of, like, collaboration, storage, sharing kinda thing. But yeah, that it confuses me. So nothing else?
Um,
Outlook.
yeah.
Yeah, we use Outlook. It's not super exciting. Everyone knows what it.
Teams.
Yeah, we talked about Teams
Oh, yeah, we
earlier.
did.
Was that when you were doodling?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I don't know, I use mostly the Adobe suite, so
Yeah,
for field.
yeah. Yeah, so Isaac says he uses Excel for his proposals. Um, so I've made some of our, like, work order forms and stuff like that in Excel and played around with doing, like, some if statements and statements to, like, auto populate fields and stuff. So I think that'd be a solid choice too, and I think it would make it a lot easier, right? So I talked about that, and it's probably been a month or so ago, and I was like, we could just build a Excel spreadsheet and have it to where you had, like, drop downs over to the side that just said specs, and if it was your standard 6-foot tall chain link, you choose that, and it would auto populate all of the specs for the whole thing. Um, and then, in Excel, you can have it to where you can, like, override the drop downs and stuff like that too, but anyways, yeah, I've played around with some of that stuff in Excel, and I think that's a pretty solid choice for making a proposal. We've never done it. Like I said, we've always just used Word, but I might try that before too long and see if I can do it and, save some time. Because I mean, we just copy and paste a lot of stuff, right? But if we got it to where it automatically does it for us and we just make a few choices, that'd be pretty nice. Um, yeah, so Outlook, like I said, everyone knows what Outlook is. I mean, we send emails, we get emails, we use the calendar. It's, we have shared mailboxes, so there's, like, a bids at memphisfence.com that's shared between a few people, so
There's contact the Memphis fans.
yep, contact. It's also a shared email account, so that's the website the email address that's on our website, so anyone who sends, like, general emails to the company that, they don't really know anyone to contact, so customers and stuff like that, then, it goes to contact at Memphis Fence, and then we have a few different people that have access to it and can kinda distribute it. And then the bids, obviously, any general contractor, like, invitations to bid on projects and stuff all goes in there, and then whenever people leave, we will convert their account to a shared mailbox or to a shared account or something like that, just free, and so we're able to keep all of their emails that came in and out and then, give access to the people that need it. So that works pretty well, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Outlook's Outlook. Not much to talk about. Yeah, yeah, so Isaac says you can save it as a PDF and send to the customer. Sorry, I was just sitting here reading, and I'm like, "Yeah." Like, it nobody knew what was going on. You shoulda hit the crickets.
I should have. I was actually looking at you, and I was like, "What's going on?"
Yeah. Yeah, so, Isaac, what I started doing on proposals there for a while, I would I'd make it in Word, and then I export it as a PDF, right? And then when I export it as a PDF, I actually was putting watermarks on it. So, like, I would protect it. And there's a way that you can go in there and, like, protect it so that other people can't edit it, and then I would also put a watermark in the background because it really frustrates me to know that people are taking screenshots of my proposal and sending it to someone else to get a price. Um, and, I mean, it happens, right? It's a part of the game, but it still aggravates me, and so I started putting watermarks behind it, and I was like, "Alright, go ahead. Screenshot that and send it to somebody." And they probably do, and it doesn't matter. If I got one and it had a watermark from some other fence company in the back, I'm gonna treat it the same as if it didn't, so there's that. But anyways, so you got anything else, Ilaria?
No.
We got started a little late, but, we can almost end on time.
Yeah.
Oh, it's been 55 minutes, so woo, man, that's been hard work. You're gonna have to give me a raise.
Yeah, right. I might.
Okay, you'll
We can
think
talk
about it?
about it after Christmas, yeah.
Okay, alright. Gotta get through the end of the year and all. All right. Well, everyone who stopped by, thanks for stopping by. And everyone who's downloaded this and listened to it, I appreciate it. If you have any suggestions or questions or comments or anything else, feel free to look us up and we'll do whatever we can to respond in an appropriate fashion to whatever it is, and, we'll see you next time.
See ya.